Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. There are really two reasons why we're here today, but just before I get into them, let me just say it's great to be just in this facility. I was mentioning that I've driven by it. We're often in Saskatoon, but this is a dynamic little part of Saskatchewan, and we hope to take a bit of time afterwards to have a closer look at things here. And everybody that I mentioned this to, by the way, today says you ought to come on a Saturday, which we'd love to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a specific thing we want to talk about today, and I'm going to let Heather do that. More on that in a moment. But we're also here generally to draw attention and awareness to the issue of accessibility for people who have different abilities, for people who face challenges that many of us are just not top of mind for many. We may not be thinking about these things all the time, and I think we should take every chance we can, as we're doing today, to highlight those issues. We can do it in a very tangible way today, and I'll explain a little bit about that. 2 years ago, roughly speaking, my first chance to be that. Was it 1 year? That's right, because it was not this last prayer breakfast, but the prayer breakfast before that happened. That's right, 1 year ago, at the Lieutenant Governor's prayer breakfast in Regina, which is an annual spring event. It's a rite of spring, and it's a great event. Heather was the guest speaker, was the keynote speaker for that breakfast. And Heather has a compelling story. I don't want to steal any of her thunder. But I just noticed sitting at the head table that when she made her way to the podium, that the podium had to be moved, and there was all manner of sort of people moving around and things that had to be switched around for her to give what was a very, very compelling talk about her life and her inspiration and things that were important to her, matters of faith. And so after the breakfast was over, I said I had just sort of jotted down a notion that we should see if we could do something about all of the difficulty that it was for her simply to take the dais and speak. And I told her we should maybe see if the government carpenters. We have great carpenters in government services who do finished work, who take care of our legislative building in an excellent way. And I said to her, maybe some of these folks could look at the notion of the idea of a podium that would be better for people who are in wheelchairs to be able to use. And I asked her if she would be willing to help, because she would be the perfect consultant. And she said she was willing to help. And her fee was just right, by the way. Like so many things she's done in her life, she volunteered to help us out with this. And so here we are. Today to unveil the second of two of these podiums. They will wind up being free. This podium is available to all the groups that we've invited, and we're glad you're here. We're glad we have the Hotels Association. We're glad SREET is here. We're glad NSBA is here and others, because I just heard actually that there was an event not long ago in the community where there was a wheelchair-bound speaker, and this podium would have worked very well. It's available, of course, free of charge for any of you who want to use it for any particular event in this city. There will be one in Saskatoon and one in Regina, as I say, and we want to encourage you to use that. And I want to just say, as I call Heather up to say a few things, I just want to thank her for the work she did here, the advice she gave our carpenters. We had a chance at the legislature last fall to salute our carpenters who did the finished work, who made this happen, and Heather was able to be there as well. And I want to acknowledge her and thank her, not just for her help with this project and the inspiration she's given us, but for her example to all of us in the province of Saskatchewan, especially to people here in Saskatoon. From her work in terms of access and disability services at the University of Saskatchewan, and because of her work, her passion, and her love for the issues that she is so committed to.